Hello everyone, this is Peter, and today we are doing a fight recap and breakdown video for our bots at Kilobots 46, an awesome event that happened in Calgary 2 weeks ago that I participated in with my 1 pound Antweight Carbon 453. And as you can see here, this is what's left of it after the event. Before we move on to the fights themselves, some context about my bot, Carbon 453. It is a hub motor mid-cutter with the goal of using only a single custom metal component, that being this laser-cut titanium bar. For more detail on the bot itself, please check out my pre-event breakdown video. The important detail that really affected its performance at this event though, was just how rushed the build ended up being. Just 1 day before the event, I was still helping host a hackathon at the Regeneron ISEF Science and Technology Fair in Atlanta. And I also had only set up my 3D printer in Atlanta the day before. Despite the time crunch, Kilobots 46 was perfectly on the way back home for me after university and the science fair in Atlanta ended, since I would usually lay over in Calgary anyways. However, because of the time crunch, I only had the time to print a single set of prints unattended while I was still at the science fair. And all the parts were printed on one file, and I did not know infill can be different for each part. When I returned home, I literally just scraped all the 3D printed parts into my carry-on case with all the electronics and headed to the airport. After landing in Calgary, the robot was then assembled in about 4 hours in the hotel with the tools I packed. I was very glad that I designed the robot to be really easy to assemble with very few screws needed, but I did not have any spares for any of the 3D printed components, which ended up really hindering Carbon 453's performance as the fights went on. Talking about the fights, let's get to our first fight in the Antweight Masters bracket, which was against Team Red Spark Robotics' Kitbot, a wedge bot with a strong titanium full-face wedge that the team runs against horizontals. Curtis, the builder and driver of Kitbot, also runs Fingertech Robotics, and I believe this version of Kitbot was originally one of the prototypes that eventually became the Viper kit. It has been pretty heavily upgraded from the stock Viper, however, having the much stronger titanium wedge. The strategy with Carbon 453 this fight was to try to get one of Kitbot's wheels by using the very long reach of our titanium bar, as well as the long offset mid-cutter geometry to our advantage. I would come in at an angle and then turn into Kitbot with the torque of the weapon and the drag to try to catch a corner or a wheel. Let's see how the fight went.
2, 1, fight! I got a box rush there for Kitbot there. He's pushing Carbon there. He's got him picking up on him. Oh, got a nice hit there on Carbon. Oh, that was a good hit there. Got some wheel damage on Kitbot. Oh, the drive is a little wonky on Kitbot. He's doing a little shit there. Carbon doesn't seem to be moving. He's
9,
counted out.
8, 7.
Oh, and Carbon is moving again, so we stop the count out there. Kitbot is trying to get out there. Carbon gets a good hit on the wedge. Kitbot, oh, we got a good bend on Kitbot's edge there. Got a little dance here. Carbon's getting on the wedge there.
10.
And we got a count. Oh, we got a tap out. Winner is Carbon.
As you can see, Carbon 453 ended up getting the win. However, right at the start of the fight, I drove straight up Kitbot's wedge, and Kitbot had a good opportunity to push me right out of the push-out zone. Instead of pushing me out, however, Kitbot decided to turn around and slam the weapon of Carbon 453 into the wall. After that, we made sure to never drive up the wedge head-on again to prevent being controlled. One of the later hits where we did do the angle approach we managed to catch the right wheel of Kitbot and disable the drive on that side. Right after that, we had our first receiver brownout of the event. Carbon 453 uses a weapon ESC without a battery eliminator circuit and relies fully on the two drive ESCs to provide power to the receiver. I think the BECs on the drive ESCs, however, were just unable to keep up sometimes, causing the brownouts. However, we were quite lucky as the brownout was very short and Carbon 453 reset itself and rebooted. After the rebooting, I gave the corner of Kitbot a few more hits and ended up bending Kitbot's wedge. The wedge was well worn, however, and has probably been hit there many times, so metal fatigue probably did most of the work. After the wedge was bent up, I was able to get a much clearer shot on the right side of the wheel, which ended up completely bending it. And then I drove around and gave one final good hit for good measure from the other side. Kitbot ended up tapping out after that, and Carbon 453 got the win. Carbon 453, however, did not come out of this unscathed either. After bringing it back to the pits, I realized that the screws that mounted the weapon to the hub were all loose since I did not have any thread locker due to time constraints. In probably one or two more hits, the weapon might have just detached. I tightened them back and added a few drops of glue to help secure them. The weapon hub was also slightly fractured, which was very, very alarming. Originally, I planned to print the weapon hub solid and everything else hollow with infill. However, because I had all of them on one print and I forgot to change the weapon hub settings, the weapon hub was also printed hollow, which was probably a grave mistake, aside from the brownouts and the lack of spares. Our next fight was against Steamed Hams, made by Brian of Team Butts Bots, who is also the one who organized this event. It is a highly dense drum spinner of mostly metal construction, and it is glued to the ground using neodymium magnets. Our strategy for this fight was just to send it, go weapon to weapon, and maybe catch a corner. Try damaging them before they can effectively damage us.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight! And we got an excellent hit there. Mike Carter was stuck on the edge there, but Steve Ham's getting a little assist there. We got another hit from Steve Hams onto Carbon. Oh, Steve Hams is pushing Carbon into the corner and pinning him. He can pin for 10 seconds. Oh, and he's pushing around the bot there. Steve Hams looks pretty small compared
10,
to... Oh, we've got
9,
a count.
8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that's a KO. The fight goes to Steve Hams. Congratulations.
This fight was where Carbon 453's lack of spares and electronics faults really showed its problem. On the first exchange, we actually managed to completely disable Steamed Ham's drum spinner. We did this by punching a slot directly into the aluminum of the drum and forming that displaced metal towards the weapon support. This displaced metal completely seized the drum and it was unable to spin for the rest of the match. We hoped to capitalize since we were still able to spin, but we could not do so effectively. After just one more hit, the fractures on the weapon hub completely opened up and it caused the weapon to also seize. This fight then turned into a pushing match, where the much grippier Steamed Hams was able to clearly win. The electronic systems then decided to brown out in one of the pushing matches, leading to Carbon being counted out. Our third fight was against Master Chop, also built by Team Red Spark. It is essentially a Viper kit with a vertical drum spinner attachment. It has a relatively weak front wedge made of polycarbonate. So our plan was to try to hit that and shatter it and maybe get to some of the electronics inside. Let's see how the fight went.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight. And that's a chop heads on over. Gets back it off of it.
This fight, unfortunately, ended in another brownout for Carbon 453 and another countout. It likely would have made a good match if Carbon 453 had fresh spares, but at that point, the hub was completely cracked and I had to put it back together with some cyanoacrylate before this fight, so it was really weakly attached. On the first few hits, we actually did manage to break through the polycarbonate front and even do damage to the polycarbonate top panel of Master Chop. But the weapon did not last, and this time the bar started destabilizing, which hit the weapon wires, which powered the motor, and disabled the weapon. Another pushing match, and this time, Carbon was pushed up against a wall where one of the corner magnets stuck to the steel of the wall. The electronic systems then decided to brown out again, causing Carbon 453 to be counted out again. And that was the first day fights over, and the weapon system of Carbon 453 basically unusable because of the lack of 3D printed parts. However, with some quick thinking and very helpful builders in the pits, we managed to give new life to this robot by giving it a new over/undercutter weapon system. First, the top weapon support, as you can see it used to be here, was completely removed by cutting it off. Then, we took out the shattered hub of the weapon, and because Carbon 453 runs a 4mm shaft DOIS motor from Fingertech that Fingertech sells, there were some pre-existing parts that I could run from the rest of the pits. Brian has machined an aluminum hub that fit my motor after some reboring, and Team Jester, who had the hub at the moment, very kindly lent it to me. Team What Am I Doing Here also graciously lent me their spare steel Fingertech weapon disc, which fit my hub, as well as a googly eye to act as a skid pad. With these modifications installed, Carbon 453 was basically a new functioning bot again, so I decided to do some exhibition fights on the second day. Our first exhibition match was against Gnasty Gnorc, a very low-to-the-ground drum spinner wedge bot hybrid from Team Jester. They have unfortunately been having electrical issues with the bot during the competition, but they managed to get it working for this fight, so we signed up for an exhibition match. I really wanted to fight them because I thought their configuration was really interesting. They have a wedge on one end and a drum spinner on the other. They also run an interesting four-wheel drive configuration by directly driving the front right and rear left wheel, and then belt driving the wheels on the opposing corners. Our strategy was to approach slow this fight, since the weapon system was brand new and untested, and try to put as little load on the weapon system as possible.
And our drivers are ready. We'll start the match in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight! Oh! Carbon 453 gets that weapon up.
Why did it just...
Moving.
Gnasty Gnorc.
Or sorry, Gnasty Gnorc is stopped moving. And he's being counted out. 5, 4,
Hit him.
3,
What's
2,
Yeah.
1, and that's a knockout. Carbon 453 is the winner. Congratulations.
Unfortunately, I believe Gnasty Gnorc had another electrical fault, which caused them to be completely shut down before any meaningful engagement and be counted out. Very unfortunate fight for Team Jester. The second exhibition match was against Flamingore, a two-wheel drive bot armed with a servo-driven HGPE flamingo head from a garden ornament as a hammer. We did not really have a strategy for this fight since this exhibition. I was much more confident with the weapon system this fight, so I was planning to just send it into Flamingore and see what happens.
Our drivers are ready, and we'll start the match in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight! Alright, they're getting out of the corner there. Carbon 453 making his way over to Flamingore. He's trying to hit those wheels, it bounces off there.
Oh no, the wheel's coming off.
Flamingore is heading over to the push out there.
This has to be
Gets away, and so Carbon 453. Oh no, Flamingore has lost the wheel. He can still drive a little bit there though. He's and Carbon 453 now. Carbon 453 is now on the cutter. Now he's flipped over out there on the outside. Flamingore is having some difficulties driving with one wheel, but he's trying.
That's right, we should make our wheels out of the stuff the flamingo's made out of.
I like the wheel guards.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if you would
Oh, got a good hit there. Oh, and now he's 453 is now an overcutter again.
We're stuck on the wheel. No, he's not.
Oh, Flamingore has moved. And now he's being countered again. Oh, and now 453 makes contact, so we have to stop.
9, 8, 7,
Count it out again.
6,
5, 4, 3. Oh, sorry, he's moving, so we stop the count out.
Hit him again!
Away there.
I'm trying to hit him.
10, 9,
Oh,
bad, 9, 8, 7, 6,
Just making it
4, 3, 2, 1, and that's a knockout.
Flamingore proved to be surprisingly durable, with the mold-injected HDP Flamingo being able to absorb attacks very effectively. The chassis was also built out of thick 3D printed nylon and was pretty resistant to the spinner until close to the end, where repeated hits to the corner eventually caused pretty significant cracking. Carbon 453 ended up being very effective at taking out exposed wheels and disabled the drive on both sides of Flamingore, leading to another KO victory. Carbon 453's last fight at the event was an interesting impromptu exhibition match idea a few builders had, and it was for 3 1-pound Antweights to fight a single 3-pound beetleight. The beetleight we were fighting was the Wretched, part of a cluster, so it was not the full 3 pounds, but it was still much heavier than any ant. It has an extremely powerful drive system from a Smeetleweight kit and a wide gear light wedge.
All right, ready up, drivers. And they're ready.
Do it.
And we will start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight. And picks up there and climbs around. And the 3 robots are trying to get in there. This is going to be chaotic. There are 4 robots in the ring. Wretched's flipping around there. Super fast though. Oh, he pushes forward. Oh, Wretched has lost a wheel. That's okay. He's got 3 more. So he's just going to keep going there. And 3 robots are the Wretched is just flying around the ring there. He's just pushing. And this is just total chaos in here, folks. It's just going. Oh, and then we lost some more wheels on the Wretched. No, he's just spinning around. He's a full body spinner now. He's just using that whole body to take advantage there. He's flying everywhere. Oh, he throws Carbon 453 out of the way. He slams into Sandport. He slams into Dizzy. He slams into Carbon 453 again. He's just total chaos there. He flies into the wall. He gets a couple of hits there. He hits Dizzy again. And they're just spinning around. Oh, he's slowed down now. Now he's pushing on Sandport. Sandport's trying to push against him. Oh, the Wretched gets flipped upside down, but that's okay. He can still drive upside down. And he hits on Dizzy there. Sandport has pinned Wretched, and the other teams come over to do a little damage there. And they kind of hit each other a little bit there. That's what happens when you have lots of bucks in the ring. Lots of chaos. Oh, we got 1 wheel working on the Wretched, but he's trying. He's spinning around again. He's using himself as a full body spinner. Oh no, he's lost another wheel. He only has 1 wheel left. Oh, and now he's a spinner again. And he slashed into his ear Sandport. Oh, he lost all his wheels. Oh, he's still driving there. He's got a hub on there. He didn't get to. Oh no, he's still got another. He's got a wheel there. I missed that. He's still got 1 wheel, folks. He's spinning around there.
You're too low, I can't hear you.
And Sandport gets underneath the Wretched again just to pin him there, and then Carbon comes in and tries to hit him.
40 seconds.
Now 40 seconds left in the fight. Sandport manages to get on the Wretched again. Wretched is trying his hardest on that 1 wheel.
Don't smoke your battery.
He's trying to spin walking around there. Oh, he's being pushed by Carbon and Centaur. Oh, now Dizzy and all three. Dizzy and Centaur underneath there. They're pushing him and they manage to pin Wretched. Oh, now all
15,
three
dog
robots
pile.
are in there. Three robots are trying to push
10,
Wretched.
9,
And we got 8, 7,
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fight is over.
Carbon 453 unfortunately did not start with full battery capacity because this fight was right after the Flamingore fight. The fight was really chaotic, but in the chaos, Carbon 453 managed to break a segment of the Garrelite wedge off of the Wretched, and also take off 2 of the Wretched's wheels. The fight ended up going the distance, and judgment was given to the crowd of spectators, who decided the winner was the Wretched, but that was not the important part. The drivers and the audience had a ton of fun this fight, and that's all really matters. And that was all the fights we did at Kilobots 46. Some main takeaways are to bring plenty of spares, remember to print the weapon hub solid, and have a dedicated BEC circuit that won't brown out. And in general, try to not rush the build next time, and do plenty of tests. A big thank you to the event organizers of Kilobot 46 to make this all happen. We all had a ton of fun. And thank you, the audience, for tuning in to this event breakdown. See you next time. Goodbye.